Mm. Hello there, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. We're here today on an Outliers Edge roundtable with three extraordinary outliers who are ready to share what they have done to navigate the world differently and ultimately create their impact, their income, and stay in integrity with who they've been throughout this process. Now, I cannot wait for us to have this conversation. I'm excited to see what emerges. Why don't we get a chance to get to know our esteemed guest here today? Why don't we start off with Abiola, then we'll go to Crystal.
Okay. Hi, my name is Abiola. I am Abiola Makanjuola, originally Nigerian, born and bred in Nigeria. I like to describe myself as an ordinary woman on an extraordinary journey. As a result of the calling in my life, I'm a mother, a sister, a friend, a soon-to-be wife. I'm a mother to two boys here in Calgary, Alberta, where I'm aged 15 and 4, they're 11 years apart. I also host the Golf After podcast where we have conversations about what life looks like when we do it, when we choose to do it with God at the center of it. And I also have Thrive with Abby, where I help people hone into their identity so they can thrive in their purpose. And yeah, that's a little about me. Yeah, I'll stop
Well,
there.
all right. Well, thank you. Like, we'll put a comma on that, a very long comma on that. Thank you so much, Abiola. I'm glad that you're here. We'll go to Crystal and then Tanya.
Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Stevens. I would first describe myself as a cat mom, matcha lover, self improvement junkie, also a bit of a holistic lifestyle junkie as well. I'm the host of the Transparency Card podcast, where we talk about all things emotions, spirituality, just getting deeper so we can truly transform our lives through having honest conversations with ourselves. It's something that I'm really passionate about. It is a passion project that has evolved into a business and hopefully continues to thrive. And I'm just excited to be here today with all of you. I currently reside in New York City.
Glad to have you here. And Tanya?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Tania Levy, aka Holistic Tea. I facilitate wellness and yoga retreats. I also teach yoga, offer tarot readings, and I'm into basically all things holistic wellness. I'm really passionate about creating community and spaces where people can heal and gain tools to help themselves and have that translate into making the world a better place. I'm based in New York City as well.
Well, I am really, really grateful for each of you coming on here to just be. And I want to acknowledge you for who you've been up until this point to get here. I'm excited that we get to be a part of your journey. What I want to start off here is it's a question that I asked a little while ago that actually has stuck with me. And we'll begin with here because I think it just like helps ground us all in the conversation. What's a belief you have when you think about your business, when you think about like how you're showing up in the world as well? What's a belief that you had about what you thought it would take to be successful that now you like no longer do, or that you're like, look, it might apply to everyone else, right? It might be conventional wisdom for them, but for me, it's like the unconventional truth is this. All right, Crystal, I see you. Why don't we start with you, and then we'll go from there.
Um, I think for me, it was the idea of having to be perfect or come across as perfect online or for, the audience that you're serving. When I created my podcast, it was kind of in a way rebelling against what I had seen in like the wellness and holistic space, because I felt like a lot of the information that I was getting was from people that had already like done the work, that had already accomplished the things. And so I couldn't really connect to them because I wasn't where they were yet. So I kind of over time have realized that really tapping into the present moment, like where you are in your journey, where you are in your process, and showcasing that and all of the imperfect parts of that is what's the most relatable and what like ultimately connects you to other people the most. So just releasing that feeling of like needing to be perfect, I would say.
Nice. For me, it'd be attaching my significance to monetary outcome. So I've been on this journey since since 2017, for real, for real. And I've had times where, I'd write stuff online and it'll resonate with people and they will reach out and, they will have conversations with me and all that good stuff. However, one thing that I have missed out on is thinking about the impacts that might have made on certain people. Because I would take them through this journey and I would be like, okay, so, discovery session, if you're a coach or if you're in the coaching world, those like conversations with regards to, oh, let's have a discovery session. And then through a discovery session, oh, what are your pain points? And then you go to the point of inviting them to work with you one-on-one or in a group setting or whatever the case is. And usually that would land into some kind of monetary reward. And for me, I've always attached that monetary reward as seeing it more as a validation with regards to what I'm doing. That if it doesn't land in monetary outcome, then everything that I have done is just like, it doesn't have any significance. And so what I realized was I was attaching a lot of my identity with money, which at the end of the day, we do need money to live. But then I had to go back to the drawing board and really think about it and be like, okay, what exactly is what is the bigger picture? Like, what is the purpose here? Like, what am I trying to do here? Yes, I want to have money. Yes, I want financial freedom. Yes, I want all of that. But then just attaching my identity to something that was bigger than me, something more meaningful, is one of the things that I've learned in my journey.
Thank you, Abiola.
Yeah, I also relate to what Crystal was saying in terms of showing up authentically online. I really feel like we each have our own unique voice and perspective, and that brings value, and also that the right people will be called to you because you're showing up authentically. So that was like a big hurdle that I had to get over myself over the past year or so. And then also feeling the need and want to control things and for them to be a certain way, and kind of releasing that expectation and just letting things unfold and like flow as they're meant to is like a constant work, really.
Yeah, Tanya, can you make that real for us? Bring us into one thing that you had to like let go of, because I like when you say that, I feel it viscerally, you know?
Yeah. So when it comes to facilitating retreats, you want people to sign up, but you can't force them. And it's a big financial commitment as well. So like I'm putting certain deposits down and stuff just with like the hope that people will be called to join. So yeah, that's a prime example of just me feeling like, okay, this is the thing I'm creating. Hopefully people sign up, but also like let me not come off as desperate trying to bring people in and follow up with them all the time and that sort of thing.
Let's play off this here, because I feel like, Abiola, you were talking a little bit like here around like the element of the monetary reward and like thinking, and so that one was a little bit more of an identity element, but there's still the element of like not feeling like desperate or coming off pushy or whatever it is, and I ask this here because I know a lot of outliers. I know myself, like, still think about this, how much is too much, and being able to like look at those components there. So they are two different areas. One of them is about the significance. So I want to talk about that. And then the other one is around like, hey, like the reality of we're not, this is not a charity. Like I need, I know I want to, and you're making, Tanya, you said you're making commitments in advance. So let's start off here. I realize as I'm saying this, we need to break this down into two different pieces, right? So let's first start off with what Tanya had brought in, and then I want to go back to something that Abiola said, and then first of all, you said something too. We're gonna everything's gonna tie back here. But let's start with what Tanya had said here around like the element of like letting go of control, and like making commitments and seeing like what it takes to be able to show up without being desperate or like how do y'all show up in that regard? Allies, there's a pause. There's a pause here because there's one of two reasons. Either my question was really messy, or the answer itself is really messy.
So ask that question again. So I want to make sure I have something to say, but I want to make sure that I'm saying.
Why don't you say what you want to say, and then we will get like we'll get what we need to get from it. Go ahead.
Okay, so you said knowing how to show up authentic, or how to Sorry, just ask the question again.
Yeah, sure. So the question that I'm most curious about right now is for those of us that are like we've committed to something, we're putting something out there, how like letting go of like the connection or the attachment to having to make money from it. Not even having to make money, that's the wrong thing to say, but it's like letting go of the attachment of like what happens in the process of trying to make the money, right? And like, because like Tania had, I'm gonna look at it from the side of where Tania come in, where it was like not coming off desperate, but at the same time, like making like you put your stake in the ground. You've made commitments in this way. There's other things you could be doing with your time. There's other things you could be doing with your money. How do y'all navigate that? Because I know that it runs in the back of our minds. Thanks for giving me a chance to clean up that question, by the way.
No, it's all good. I think that's really where like the authenticity comes into play. Really trusting who you are and trusting that this thing that you've been giving is purpose, and your desire to be able to fulfill this is not just for self, but there's a bigger picture to it. In my experience, that's what I would say. There's times where I've had prior to 2017, even though I said I did attach myself or my worth at some point to monetary outcome. Prior to 2017, when I started in the coaching industry, I was going through scripts and I was working with scripts. I worked with coaches who would like give me scripts and tell me this is what you have to do. And so I'm sitting down on my computer, I'm making down a list of people that I know, and then I'm calling and I'm like, oh, do you know anybody who's going to need coaching for love? Do you know anybody who's going to need coaching to, make their love life better and stuff like that? But then what I did not know or what I did not realize, what I'm asking people if they need coaching for love, but then looking at myself, I was a total wreck and a total mess. So at that point in time, I wasn't being authentic with the message that I was passing on. It was more like, follow the script to do this, and that's what it is. And then now fast forward to 2017, where I was coming from a place of being authentic in terms of the fact that I had gone through rock bottom. I had hit rock bottom. I had to move back to my parents' house. I had to go back to working a job that I did not think I was going to be working. I had to go back to making $400 a month because I couldn't because the job that I had wasn't giving me enough hours. I had to go back to sleeping on the floor of my parents' house. I had to go back to basically just surrendering myself and just letting my ego go and just coming up as this is who I am, and allowing people to just help me pick the pieces of my life back and putting it together. So there was no covering, there was no pretending or feeling like, oh, I have this to show up for who I'm not, or I have this to cover up for who I'm not. So I think that so for me, there was that level of authenticity that when I would show up online, there was truth to what it is that I was saying because I had walked that journey, because I had done certain things, because I had experienced certain things. So when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking from a place of just superficial, thoughts. I'm speaking from a place that says, I have been through this. I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. And I'm willing to do the work to be able to move from here to where it is that I want to be. So I think there's some authenticity and some trust that goes into that. But then again, we're human beings. So just like Crystal and Tania said, we're human beings where we get nervous because like, oh my God, I've invested this. Are people going to show up? Are people going to come? So that part is also there. But when you know what you're doing, your people are going to show up. So even if it's one, even if it's two, even if it's three, your people are going to show up because you are authentic, because you're true to yourself, and because you're just not doing it it's not just about the money. You want to really help people because you've been there and you know what it looks like. It sucks. Yeah, that's what I would say. Can't hear you.
Thank you so much for that there. And like I'm feeling exactly where you're coming in. Let's just open it up here. Crystal, Tania, what else you got? Crystal, I seem like you're opening.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything Abiola said. Like the first thing that came into my mind when you asked that question was tying it back to your why. Like transparently, I haven't made a whole bunch of money from my podcast. I've made like a few dollars here and there. Each time that I've made it, I've been so elated because I'm like, oh wow, this is the first thing that I've ever like created that I've actually seen some sort of like tangible results from. But even then, when I would see that, I was like, okay, that's cool. But when I would see how many people my podcast reached, I'd be like, wow, that's when I would really feel, excited. And I think that's the thing, as we go through this process of, evolving, growing a business, there's going to be different phases where you're focused on different things. Like I think in the beginning, you actually have a little bit more freedom because you're like, I can show up however online because no one's really like watching. Like that's what you think, right? No one's really watching. So you get to be creative. There isn't like as many restrictions and limitations. I think it's like when you start actually like making money, then you're kind of like, you get into this mindset of how can I continue this? How can I not lose this? And then that's where that feeling of desperation comes in. I agree with Abiola. It comes back to being authentic. It comes back to knowing yourself, knowing your worth, and knowing why you're doing what you're doing. And I'm also an like adamant believer in doing it in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have to follow like everyone else's template. I think that templates are great. And I think that there's a proven process. But when it comes to something like even like coaching, like Abiola's doing, or like podcasting, like people are coming to this for you and for your specific message. I think what we're putting out is also so personal. Like these are also personal brands in a way. So do it in a way that is exciting and also fun for you, because I think that when you're genuinely doing what you love, like it translates and people will naturally be attracted to you and the energy that you're putting out as well. So I think that's what would ultimately keep me like in that space. I will say that I'm sure over time, like God willing, my business does expand and I'm able to really make a significant income from that and maybe make that my only source of income in some way. I'm sure that I may feel that and that stress, but I think I'm also like a firm believer in God, and I just really do have faith that like God will carry you through those hard times. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm just gonna add as well, having confidence in what we're putting out there and like the product, whether that's podcasts, events, coaching, whatever, like having confidence in the thing that we're creating and showing up from that place as well helps.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes, I appreciate this here. There's a real like space in terms of like being in what is actually happening and having the confidence. So what I'm hearing from you all is like authenticity, like being willing to allow yourself to enjoy the benefits of whatever stage that you're in, and also coming out with like being out in the confidence of it all, and honestly just putting out something really good, like for you at least, and being confident in that, and then continuing to grow from there. Thank you there. I like looking into these things, especially when it comes to like monetizing what you're doing, because I think a lot of us here as outliers, like there's two sides of us. Like some of us are working in a full-time job right now, and we're like, okay, great. How do I make my transition into either transition fully into something, or how do I start like bringing out my message and start bringing out the audience? And it's nice to talk about these things in advance here, so we can like build the bridge. I want to talk to each of you here around being a thought leader. Right. And I'm going to use, I realize like there's a distinction for me, and distinctions for me are like where two things look to be the same, but actually like there's a nuance in there that carries power. And so the distinction for me is around being a thought leader versus creating content. All right. I think there's a lot of people who are creating content. Sometimes I even ask myself on this panel, I'm like, am I thought leading? Or is this or my experience lead? I'm like, this is not my thoughts. So I'm like, am I leading in the like with the experience, or am I just creating content? And so I'll be curious to you all, like, I'll step into this question first. When you think of yourself as a thought leader versus when you're creating content, what would you say is like the difference in the way that you show up, or the way that you prepare yourself, or like what comes out when you have when you look at it from those two lenses? And if you're like, actually, I haven't been looking at it from those two lenses, state that, but then let us know, like, if there would be a difference for you. If there isn't, then that's fine too. But I'm curious about that. This like exploring the distinction of thought leader versus content.
I've actually never like separated both of them.
I'll say, I don't know if this is I don't know. I'll just let my answer come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like I'm letting my
So,
questions come out. You're good.
Yeah. So like I've been having a creative flow, or like, at certain times I have ideas that come into my head, and I feel like when that happens, when it's just like a natural occurrence where I'm like, oh, this is an idea of how I can create content or create something that I can then post and share with others, that feels more thought leader-esque than sitting down and being like, okay, let me try and map out content to then create. So having the idea
mm,
come to me first,
mm,
and then from there creating the content, if that makes sense.
I
mm,
agree with
mm.
that. Like,
I
Abiola,
agree.
I believe that you agree with this here.
No. I
What
agree
else do
with
you want to say
Tanya.
with it?
I agree with Tanya. Because I've had moments where I've like sat down and then I'll create like posts. I can't remember the name of the app that I used to use, but it's this app that allows you to, it just automatically posts, like you schedule your posts and then it would upload it on social media Monday through Friday. I can't remember the name now, but I've had moments where I've done that. And then I've just also had moments where it's just spontaneous and it just comes and it's like, yeah, just do it. So yeah, I agree with Tanya in a nutshell.
Crystal, anything come to you on this here? The
yeah.
thought leader distinction or anything else?
Yeah, so I also agree with Tanya. I think being able to like tap into your flow state is super important, and I think whenever I'm in a space where like I want to plan content, I look at it as more of like how can I take this idea that I came up with in that flow state and how can I organize it and like put it out in a way that's going to be most impactful. So like I for me, I like to like split those two things up as well. And like even the way that like I'll manage my time kind of falls in that as well. So it's like in the morning, I feel like I'm the most clear. And if I give myself time to just like be, whether it's like reading a book or just going for a walk, all these ideas will come. And then later at night, I'm a little bit more like, I kind of want to do something. I want to create something. So then that's the time when I'll go and like write down the idea, actually like draft something out, plan it out, and then create it another day. So yeah, in a nutshell, I agree with
Yeah,
Tanya.
no, this is
Yeah.
no. It's interesting because it's like while there's agreements, there's different like angles to this here, right? And I think that's important. Like I like there's again like you're fine with me. I'm big on distinctions. I'm like, what is it that actually I don't know, let's say this. A lot of the outliers that I meet, and a lot of like I can tell it from each of you, like you've all done like the basics,
Mhm.
you've done the personal development, you've done the business development, you believe in the self-development, you're doing things, you're aligning your days and such in a certain way. And so I like to see like what are the nuances that go beyond like what you hear people like repeating, and how does it actually apply out in your world. So I like it's cool that like and it fits underneath an umbrella, and I like to see these nuances. Crystal, you brought something that really like got me thinking here, which is well, there's two parts. One, you talked about how you structure your day. Two, there's more than two parts. I'll pull out. I'm going to create more distinctions based on what I heard. One, there was a structure to your day. You're like, I realized that I'm most clear. And interestingly, like I thought when you said I'm most clear, I'm like, oh yeah, so that's when she gets her work done. She's like, and so since I'm clear, I actually bring in more, or I allow myself to go out and allow things to come through. So that was really quite interesting. A lot of people will come to me and they say, I'm looking for clarity. And it's a in, I've never heard clarity being like explored or like described in that way, Crystal. So that was something new for me to kind of think in. And outliers, you might want to play with that. Maybe it's like instead of like sitting down and be like, I need to do this thing and trying to get something out, the clarity you're looking for might just come from that walk or giving yourself space from it. So that's one thing that I heard,
For sure.
Crystal.
Mhm.
All right, cool. The other thing that I heard here that I thought was really cool was just like breaking up, like yourself, what works for you, and it
Mhm.
was like it almost feels like the difference between writing and editing. It's like right. This is not the time. Like there's one time to get the information. There's another time to then go and produce. And for you, you found like you're like I can separate the two of them, and it works for them. And outliers, I think that the key here is like what works for you. If you're unapologetically just going to do your thing, maybe it's like, look, I do really well from like 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Like Honestly, that's me. I'm such a people person that like trying to get admin done during the day, unless I block off 8 hours so I can do two, like there's like it just doesn't work, you know? But you get me at like 10 o'clock at night, I'm like, oh, let's code this. Let's move this around. Let's test this around. I can totally do it at that time. So I'm gonna invite you to look into and see what works for you. Tanya, Abiola, I'd love to hear like what's something that you found out through your work here on yourself and such of things that work like just uniquely for you. Maybe no, maybe it doesn't work for anyone else, but you know it works for you. Let's start with you, Tanya, and then we'll go to you, Abiola.
Mhm.
What works for me? Um, I mean, I would say, yeah, like not putting too much pressure on myself to create or have ideas. And yeah, it's in those moments like in the morning or like in the shower randomly or when I'm walking or having a conversation with someone else where like this inspiration can come in. Um, yeah, that's what initially comes to mind, but I'll think about it some
Yeah,
more.
if anything else comes in, just let it keep ruminating and let it keep percolating. Abiola?
Yeah. For me, it'll be I like to have my me time. Obviously, with having two boys, my day starts up with them in the picture. My day normally starts up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't have a choice. That's just how it is. So what I do is I usually would wake up. I set my alarm. I go to bed early. I set my alarm for 3 a.m. I'm very big on God. I'm very big on the Word. I like my identity is honed in Jesus Christ as my Lord and my Savior. So I always pray at 3 a.m. at least for an hour. I pray, speak in tongues, study the Word, and I just ask for inspiration. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing today? Sometimes it could just be in that moment, I could just get inspiration and then I take my phone in the notes app and I just write stuff, I scribble stuff down. Or it could be maybe just, having conversations. But for the most part, it's usually like that morning time, that during the day. I'm a day person. So I will just get that inspiration and then it'll come. Sometimes you might just be reading the word. Sometimes you might just be taking something from the word and now understanding it through the lens of my own experience. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I journal a lot. I write a lot. I have my journal somewhere around here, right there. I have my journal. So I'm always writing stuff. I'm always scribbling stuff. I'm always like, just, So for me, I would say that. But prior to that, it never used to be that way. I was more of like it has to happen like this, like what's the word? Um, it was more like a something
Maybe.
had to happen. Yeah, like a schedule type thing. And I
Right.
got burnt out so fast. So it had allowed me to now find what works for me. Because when you go to coaching or when you coach with other people, there's certain things that they will tell you, oh, you have to post every day. You have to be in the faces of people. You have to post 3, 4 times a day. And that burns you out really fast because I've experienced it. So now it's now working. Okay, so sometimes today I might not have an inspiration to post. Tomorrow I'm like, oh, I want to do a video, but I might not post it on that day. I might maybe post it on Monday. But then I know that I have it already and it's waiting in the archives and I just need to post. And sometimes I might do a video, I might watch it and be like, you know what, I don't want to put this out there. I don't like it. It doesn't sound good. So again, I think it comes from knowing who you are, knowing yourself, knowing how you work. And just like Crystal said at the in the earlier part of this conversation, it's there are no rules to these things. Yes, some rules, but for the most part, like when you go within, you will know.
Yeah, I feel like there's like principles that apply. Like you should market, you should let people know that you exist, but how
Yeah,
you do it, like there's some things that work really well. But I like this is why I
exactly.
also like talking to outliers because like the thing about outliers is like it's like y'all are willing to walk a different path and say like this might have been harder. I might have gotten there theoretically, I might have gotten there faster if I had done what you
Mm-hmm,
said. But one of two things might have happened. Either I would have gotten
mm-hmm,
there and it would have burned me out,
mm-hmm,
or I would like successfully achieve failure. I like to say it's like, yeah, I did all the things and I hate the business that I grew. I can't like all my listeners or all the people on my platform want me to talk about something that I don't want to do. I'm
mm-hmm,
watching a TV show right now where someone's like caught doing Christmas stuff all year round because like that's what went viral. And so like he's like, I gotta keep doing it.
mm-hmm.
So like
I also
yeah.
sorry, I also want to add something else that's just been tugging on my mind. It's the process of character building, and I think we don't take that enough into consideration whenever it is that we're, because this is a journey, and when you see it as such, you're able to really, I think you're able to like build yourself. Because yes, personal development, but then you really don't get to know yourself just by working with yourselves. You would have interactions with other people. You'd have interactions with clients, with people that you're working with, and it just allows you to build that character, to build to just honing to that person that you're becoming.
Yeah.
So I would say character building is something that I've also learned in this journey, that even though, I might not be making $10,000 every month right now, there's also that there's so many things that have changed about me over the course of time that when I look back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I used to do that. Right.
There's a component of this here, and I want to open this up for y'all to get your thoughts on it. As I continue doing business and continue building out my platform, what I realized is that not everyone, I mean, I use that like so broadly, but the people that I gravitated to, a lot of them were saying like, it's really simple, it's really easy, and then when you actually get into it, you realize like there's a lot more involved than just what they said. Even just like, are you getting out in front of people every day? Like there's an emotional toil to it. It's like there's a creative cost to it. There's a like physically like using your fingers. Like my eyes hurt when I concentrate on something. So like I'll like have to stare out into the distance and be like, okay, 30 seconds. Can I at least get 30 seconds to look up off the screen? So I would like to explore for each of you here. I want to see how I want to frame it. There's something that they talk about, like when you get into a new project, that you come in with like uninformed optimism, and then you start getting to become informed pessimism, and then you enter what they call the valley of despair, where it's just like, oh my goodness, this thing really sucks. I'm not good at it. It's not what I was promised, so on and so forth. And usually at that point, you have to make a persevere or pivot choice, right? Persevere being like, okay, it sucks. It means that like I thought this was what it was, but I'm just going to keep getting through it and like grinding through until I get to the other side, and then things start getting better until you reach like quote unquote success with it, right? Or you pivot and you're like, you choose something different, right? I'd like for you each to think about one thing in your business right now, and and your life and business right now, that like you're thinking about, that is where you're in that mix, maybe even in the valley of despair, if you're willing to go there, right? So you can either share a time where you hit the valley of despair and you decided to persevere through, and what came up for you on the other side. And if there's something you're working on right now where you're like, I'm still in it, I don't know if this is going to work, like I would appreciate us like being able to bring that into the mix too. Like me myself, I'm doing these podcast conversations, I'm like, it's part of my business, don't know where it's going to lead to, but I'm like, I'm in, you know. So who here feels called to share on that?
I want to share.
Yeah. All right,
No,
Abiola,
Crystal,
go to
go
you.
ahead. No, Crystal, go ahead.
No, are you sure?
Okay.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you.
We'll do this then. Yeah. Why don't we go Crystal, then we go Abiola, then we go Tanya. I think all of y'all had something here.
Okay. You're gonna have to remind me of the second half of your question, but
It's okay. I'm asking complicated questions today. I'm sorry about that. Let's just simplify it. Answer the part of the question you have, and then we'll go from there. Sorry.
I would say that I actually recently was in the valley of death with my podcast. So I hadn't been consistent for like quite some time because I lost motivation. Like I think, well, for one, life happened, but on the other side of it, like I wasn't seeing the growth that I had hoped to see. And I think I wasn't like necessarily getting like reviews. I wasn't getting comments. So I felt like there's no tangible thing that's keeping me going. And I think I just began to question my own, I guess I questioned my project. I questioned myself, like, who am I to be doing this then? Like, if it's not like making the impact that it originally was, like, am I the person to be doing this? Like, should I be channeling my ideas or like my gifts into something else that's going to like prove to be more fruitful? But the ironic thing is too, like I started this podcast in 2021, and over the course of the last few years, I've entered this valley many a time. And I'm also very much a perfectionist too. So like, I'm not going to call myself a perfectionist. I dealt with perfectionism. I don't like to label myself. And each time that I would find myself in this valley, like I would pivot. And I think it's because I was afraid to take on that challenge. I think at the time I was also kind of afraid to even have faith that if I went over that hump that I would get to where I wanted to be. And so the ironic thing is I keep finding myself coming back to this podcast though. It's so strange. Like I feel like as many times as you try to pivot away from maybe what some may call their purpose, you keep getting called back to it in different ways. And so that's the thing that is now, you know, forcing me in a way to persevere, because I can't see myself doing anything else. In this space at least. So yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
Abiola, why don't you expand on this here too? But like Crystal, just so you know, like I've had this podcast. I've been podcasting on and off for 10 years. Started out in my parents. Yeah, I started up my first like recorded thing was a video that I put on YouTube. You can still find it. I'm wearing this Argyle sweater, sitting in my parents' bedroom recording an episode, and the internet kept chopping out. And I literally went and spent like 6 hours getting someone's like the middle of their sentence like together. That's why it took me a while, but that's why like I don't edit. Like whatever happens, we go, because like I was like it ain't worth it. But it came in, and this is the first year, like last year I've been like really saying like I found it. Like I'm making like I keep coming back to the podcast. I get clients from it. Not everyone comes in, but like I can do this all day. Like I have 6 of these panels today on the calendar today. And I'm just like and I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what do I need to do to get prep for this? Let me go make some lunch to go have in the middle of the day to like eat while I'm doing this here. But like I can't do 6 hours. Like I told you about, I'll block off 8 hours to do 2 hours of admin. Like this is something I could do forever. Talking to awesome people, doing great things out in the world. Like absolutely. So there is something there. I like that you're like hearing the call. You're like, no matter where I go, all paths seem to keep leading back to this. This time around, let me just figure out what I haven't figured out yet, and then crossover. Does that feel like it honors what you say, Crystal? Like I want to make sure I'm not like putting words in your mouth.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for that. You're like it's hitting me. I'm like, oh yes, I will stand by this. Thank you for that reminder. Abiola, Tania, anything that's coming to y'all?
For me, I would say that definitely agree with Crystal. Always coming back to that point where it's like you go different places and you're like, let me try this, let me try this, let me try this, let me try this, but then you come back to that, starting point. It's like, okay, there's a reason why I started this in the first place. For me, in my own experience, I started my podcast in 2019, and like I said, it was birthed out of my own personal experience with God and just wanting to create that awareness that, okay, the relationship with God doesn't have to be what it is that we've been taught in church. We don't have to, like, God loves us and wants a relationship with us, which was the reason why I started the podcast. And then I went through my own personal life journey where I got married in 2020. No, I got married in 2019. Then eventually got a divorce, separated in 2021, divorced in I think last year or 2 years ago, I don't remember. But anyways, I had a period of time where I got angry. I was angry at God, and I was like, I worshipped you. I did everything you wanted me to do. So like, why did I end up being divorced? And then I switched the podcast from the name of the podcast from the God Factor podcast to Let's Keep It Real. And I'm like, we're gonna talk about sex, we're gonna talk about money, we're gonna talk about this and da 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 da. But then that was also birthed from my anger and my disappointments and everything. But anyways, through walking through that process and just allowing the Spirit of God to lead me in a direction where I have to take accountability for how I apologize. Where allowing the Spirit of God to lead me and taking accountability for how I showed up for the decisions that I made, I changed the name back to the God Factor podcast. And even though it's not like I don't know what's a popular podcast that everybody listens to. I don't know, maybe like a Lewis Holmes podcast. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with who Lewis Holmes is.
That's fine.
But,
keep going.
Yeah, so it's not like your Lewis Holmes podcast, so it's not like a very popular podcast, but I get reviews here and there. I just have this connection with the people that I have conversations with when I reach out to people and they're like, oh yeah, for sure, let's have a conversation. And I have just this connection with them. I learn something every day. I see my downloads. I see the people that are listening and I'm like, wow, somebody's listening to me in Australia. Somebody's listening to this in Nigeria. Somebody's listening to this in New Zealand. And I'm like, what? Like, wow. So even if it's 2, it's 3, I still find myself coming back to this podcast I enjoy what it is that I do. I could do this all day. I don't like the admin part of it. I don't like the editing. I don't like social media. I don't like the graphics. I don't I don't like all of those things. But I just want to sit and have conversations. Just book me people. I'll have conversations with them and I will talk all day long. That's me. But
I will
yeah,
tell you,
that's just been my
it's nice
experience.
when you get there. It's very, very nice. So like keep like that, like as
I'm
I'm saying, like
excited.
that's the benefit of persevering on it. I'm like, I just literally gotta
I'm
show
looking
up.
forward to doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's been my
Yeah.
experience. And just like Crystal said, I think I think there's also, I think for me personally speaking, there's also that I think following people on social media where, oh, one day they're working, like it's like an overnight success. So I see that and I'm like, oh, why is it not working for me? And I'm like, oh, maybe I should stop doing this and maybe I should move to something else and maybe I would get that overnight success or I'll get that overnight result. But the truth is, it's a process, it's a journey. And that's why I spoke about character building. It's not so much, oh, it's going to happen overnight, but it's now, what am I learning through the process? I'm going to get there. My podcast is going to be one of my main sources of income, but then what am I learning through that journey to the point? So when I get to the point where that podcast is now one of my main sources of income, I'm not dealing with there's certain things that I'm not going to be dealing with,
You've
like,
handled it on that at that point.
yeah, like there's
Yeah.
certain things
Yeah.
because I've learned through the journey what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So now I'm now cutting down time. I'm not investing time trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work, but I'm investing time in making sure that I get the right team. I'm making sure that that I have guests that I can have a conversation with. I'm investing time in making sure that, the aesthetics and all that stuff, because I like the
You like
aesthetics
that? You like how it
aesthetics.
looks? Yeah. Yeah. I get
Yeah,
you.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm
Yeah. Bring it
investing
all
time in
together.
all of those things. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it all brings
So
the podcast together. So
I
yeah.
like this here. I want to leave. We're coming up close to our time, so I want to make sure that Tanya has some space here to also like bring in and bring this here. So Tanya, I'm very curious about what's plopping off for you. If your thoughts have gone in a different direction, feel free to bring that there. But like, take us here, and then we'll wrap up for today.
Yeah, so sorry if you hear alarms. We'll
No, we're
see.
good. We don't hear anything. That's why like Zoom doesn't let that kind of stuff in. It's like that doesn't sound
Oh,
like a person.
okay. All right.
It's like alarms don't sound like a person. Let's keep going. Yeah.
So not comparing myself to others is a big thing when like in the valley. Also going back to my support system and the people in my life that have known me, known like the journey I've been through, and kind of talking it out with other people if I'm feeling down or if I'm feeling like not motivated. Also reflecting and having gratitude for the journey, how far I've come, and like the things that I have accomplished, and like reminding myself of those are really important. And then from like a spirituality standpoint too, like I do meditations every morning, and having a point in the day where I'm like, okay, thank you for support, and also asking for guidance as well. Those are some thoughts that came to mind.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you for sharing both your thoughts and your heart. I felt that here in this conversation. Somehow, like our time has just like blown on by. And I just want to let you know that I really respect each of you. And Outliers, for any of you that are listening, if something in this conversation, even if it's one line, like really like reach your heart, I haven't asked for you. My ask is that you share this with one person. I don't need you to go blast it on social media. I think it'd be like just better to just tell one person that is important to you that, hey, I listened to this conversation and I think it would be really meaningful for you. And here's why. Right. And just send them this message here. I like to grow from that. I realize like if every person just tells one person, that's enough for like great people to be meeting other great people. And I can't wait for them to get to know each and every one of you three here today. For what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up and we're going to have to make this a bit succinct. So what I'm going to ask you to do is let Outliers know how they can continue on with you, and also to share your biggest insight from the conversation, right? The insight that you have, right? Let's put it this way. You don't need to have an insight. So if you're like, hey, my insight is I had no insight, I get it, but that's how we'll go ahead and close for today. So why don't we start with Abiola? We'll keep everything fairly succinct so we can wrap up here. But Abiola, let us know like the insight you got from today's conversation and how people can continue the journey with you.
Yeah, for sure. So my biggest insight is that you're not alone. So don't ever think that you're alone. how to reach me, I am on Instagram, Thrive with Abby, Abiola Makanjuola on Facebook, Twitter, I think it's Miss B McKay. Well, Instagram is the primary way for you to be able to reach me, Thrive with Abby.
And can I ask you, is it ABI or is it like, is it spelled something different?
Yeah, ABI. Thrive
Okay.
with ABI. Yes,
All right,
all one word.
perfect. All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Tanya.
So you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, starting to dabble in YouTube at Holistic Tea. That's with a WHO, holistic_T. And an insight that I got from this is like coming back to your why and your purpose, and from there letting things flow.
Well, thank you for being here. And Crystal?
Hi, so you can follow me on Instagram at it's Chrissy Stevens. You can also follow the Transparency Card podcast on Apple, Spotify. I'm most active on Instagram, and I also have a YouTube channel at It's Crystal Stevens. The biggest insight for me today, it's pretty much the same as Abiola's. It's really that you're not alone in your journey, and also to keep going. Like, if you feel like this is what you're meant to be doing, trust yourself, trust the process, don't give up.
Well, thank you for trusting me. I know that I'm a random person who invited you into an experience here. And thank you for bringing all of your processes and your experiences to this conversation and to share it with one another. We here as Outliers have benefited, and I wanted to say I wish you continued success on your journey.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Be you on purpose. Journey on.
Thank you. Have a great one.